Hi everybody, thank you very much for your interest in today's grammar lesson. We will focus our attention on modal verbs, a broad topic which can hardly be exhaustively discussed in one single lesson. I really hope you will enjoy it and that it may help you further develop your English language knowledge. Should you like it, your leaving a thumb up and sharing would be really appreciated. So let's get started. Okay, here we are. The first thing I'd like you to do is to form one or more sentences expressing any of the following situations. If you want, while doing so, you can pause this video and take all the time you need. Are you finished? Okay. When forming such sentences, you have most likely used some verbs, which are defined as auxiliary verbs. Auxiliary verbs, also known as helping verbs, are used with the main verb of the sentence. Do you know what the main verb of the sentence is? Yes, you are probably right. In a general sentence, the main verb describes the action performed by the subject. By way of example, Luigi studies English, Luigi is the subject, and studies is the main verb. Auxiliary verbs are used to add additional information, such as to form tenses as well as negatives and questions. Auxiliary verbs may be divided into two groups. Primary auxiliaries, which include the verb to be, to have, and do, which I would suggest here to learn as something different from the verb to do. For this reason, it is shown as a bare infinitive without to before it. And modal auxiliaries, which are shown in orange. Modal auxiliaries have some peculiarities. First, let's talk about the third person s. In fact, unlike most English verbs, modal verbs do not take the s when conjugated in the third person. But there are a couple of exceptions to the rule. The modal verb to have to, which behaves like the verb to have, and the modal verb to be able to, which behaves like the verb to be. Then, not all modal verbs are followed by a full infinitive, which means the infinitive with to. In fact, most of them are followed by a bare infinitive, such as she must do her homework. As you can see here, must is only followed by the main verb without to, just like the other modal verbs highlighted in red. But there are some exceptions. In fact, the modal verbs to be able to have to, and owe to are always followed by a full infinitive, like in the following sentences. What I would suggest in this case is to learn them with the preposition to coming next, as in the long run this simple trick will certainly help you use them correctly. Another major characteristic of modal verbs is that they are used to form negatives and questions. So, assume we have a simple affirmative sentence like you can see me, which is made up of a subject first, then a modal verb, followed by the main verb and a direct object. To form a question, you just have to make the subject auxiliary inversion. So the same sentence in the form of a question would now consist of the modal verb first, followed by the subject, and then the rest of the sentence. When it comes to forming a negative sentence, you just have to take the affirmative sentence and add the negative particle not soon after the modal verb. Here, I've shown the modal verb and the negative particle not in their contracted form. But, also in this case, there is an exception. The modal verb to have to still behaves as a modal verb in affirmative sentences, and in fact, look at the sentence she has to work. However, when forming questions and negative sentences, it behaves as a normal verb and requires an auxiliary, and more precisely, the auxiliary do, which is used to make the subject auxiliary inversion, like in "Does she have to work?" and to add the negative particle not to it, like in "She doesn't have to work." You can see here below a simple list of the modal verbs we have just examined. Now, let's consider how they're used and make some examples together. When talking about something which is possible, the modal verbs commonly used are may, might, and must. Look at these sentences. In the first sentence, I'm expressing the possibility of buying a car because I have not yet decided what to do with the money of my first salary. In this case, both may and might are acceptable. By the second sentence, I'm describing a situation which is expected to occur in the future, but is not 100% certain. In this case also, may and might are both appropriate. Still talking about something which is possible, the third sentence exemplifies a kind of non-intuitive use of must to express possibility. Perhaps it's raining. I just want to bring to your attention the fact that the modal verbs of these sentences have no third person s. When asking for permission, the modal verbs more commonly used are may, can, and could. Look at the examples. When entering a room, maybe the room of your English language examination, to ask for permission to get in, students usually say, "May I come in, please?" The second sentence of this set is an example of the way how also can or could are used to obtain permission to do something. In the third sentence, permission is asked by using may and can. These are three possible examples of the way how the subject auxiliary inversion is made with modal auxiliary verbs. Even though it is used also for asking permission, can is generally used to express ability. In these sentences, can is used with verbs of perception, like to see, and may equally be used with verbs of thinking, like, by way of example, I can imagine, and so on. Then, could is used to express ability in both present actions, like I could do this and that, and past actions, like I could have done this and that, as well as to talk about something that someone could but is unlikely to do. I mean, something unrealistic. To be able to, instead, is used when the action is happening in the future or in the past. To express necessity, the modal verb need is used in negatives and questions to indicate lack of necessity. For suggestion and advice, here are a couple of sentences in which both should and ought to are viable. As a general, very general rule, when expressing an obligation, we use must and to have to. The former one, must, being used to express a permanent obligation to observe rules and instructions set or given by an authority, as well as internal obligations. The latter one to express an obligation we have because of an order we have been given, as well as to form future and past tenses, as must can only be used in the present tense. So, let's consider the following sentences. In the first one, to have to and must may be used interchangeably. In the second one, it is crystal clear that it is a permanent instruction, so we have to use must. As already said, when forming sentences in the future tense and in the past tense, the use of to have to is mandatory. Special attention has to be paid when using such verbs in negative sentences, as they may have a substantially different meaning. Must in the negative indicates an obligation not to do something. To have to is used in the negative to express a lack of necessity to do something. I have uploaded the exercise we have just done in a Google form as a multiple choice test that you can have access to by scanning this QR code. Considering that the topic is rather hefty and the lesson is kind of a bulky one, I have decided to split it into two parts, with part 1 being a prerequisite to follow part 2, that I'm going to publish in the next few days, if possible before vacation. I wish to thank all those, if there has been any, who have patiently followed this lesson until the end. I wish you a happy English and hope to see you soon.